Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Welcome to episode 8, or episode 9, sorry, episode 9 of the Pace Pals podcast series. Today I have Fu with me, also known as RichardSage. Welcome on in.
Yo, thanks for having me on the show. Glad we can do this.
Yeah, it's kind of been cooking it up in the background a little bit. It's been quite a long time since I've done an episode, but it's really good to finally have you on.
Yeah, it's glad we can do this.
So, I got a couple of questions that we can go over. First off, what category of speedrunning do you do?
All right, so for people who don't know who I am, so I'll give you guys a quick intro. I go by RichardSage on Twitch. My real name is Fu. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I've been speedrunning The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time since 2017. So I started it as a hobby in very early 2017, and I ran a category called Any Percent. So if you're new to speedrunning or you are familiar with speedrunning, Any Percent is typically the most fastest category, and usually is the fastest category in any speedrun game. So what made me want to do it was like I saw a couple of streamers, particularly a streamer named Skater and a streamer named Torj. They were both 80% runners. They were both the top two runners in the world at the time. And I found their Twitch streams through YouTube. And I would watch these YouTube videos, watching these guys like beat this one of my favorite games of all time, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, so fast. They beat it in like under 20 minutes, and it absolutely blew my mind. So that's what made me want to do it. And I ended up picking up the category in 2017, and I ran it for a really long time. I ran it from 2017 to 2020, back when it was labeled 80%. And then a trick called SRM, Stale Reference Manipulation. Basically, it's a super powerful glitch in Ocarina of Time that was discovered about 4 years ago, and it completely changed the landscape of the game. And then what happened is the route that I ran. So the route that I ran, which was called the Get Item Manipulation route, split off into its own category called Defeat Ganon. From there, I ran Defeat Ganon from 2020 to 2023, and I ended up achieving 5 world records. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Well, so that kind of like goes into the first question I have is like what inspired you to start streaming and how did you get it through like Skater and tours and all that. So,
Sure. So you want to know how what inspired me to start streaming and speedrunning?
yeah, yeah.
Sure, I guess this is probably one of my favorite stories to tell. I'll give you guys like the long story because like we want to have a nice long podcast, and I'll give you guys like the story of how I got into it. And if anyone's listened to my podcast, you know that I've shared this before, but I'll share it again, especially for this podcast here for the Pace Pals podcast. So, what inspired me to start streaming? There's a bit of a story to it. So, it all began in 2014. All right, so this goes a little quite a while back, nearly 10 years ago. Actually, yeah, 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
10 years.
Um, I just about graduated university. So I graduated with a master's degree and I had a bit of a holiday before I started a new job. And I remember I was on YouTube and I was just chilling in my room. Like, this is like, wow, I can't believe it was 10 years ago. And I remember just thinking to myself, oh, who beat Zelda fast? It was the most random like thing I could search up on YouTube at the time. And I typed in, Zelda beaten fast. And what happened was there was like a commentary video made by a speedrunner named Nasisa Wright, and they made a video called like the greatest speedrun ever, something like that, and it was like beating the game in 18 minutes and 10 seconds, which was the world record at the time. And I watched that video and it absolutely blew my mind because Narcisa like explained the entire speedrun from start to end, every glitch, why things are done, and that blew my mind, and that always stayed in my mind, right? So this is 2014. Now we fast forward a few more years from 2014 to 2017. I never thought of it again. I just lived my life, worked a full time job. I went about my life, played competitive pool, and then it was early 2017. So this is just after New Year's 2017, right? I remember being in my backyard, and I was sitting in my backyard. I was probably sipping on a coffee at the time, reading a book, and I remember making two wishes to myself. So what I usually do is every year I like to like pray. I like to think about what I want for the future, and I made two wishes to myself. The first wish was I want to try something new because I always like to try new things in my life. And the second thing was I want to meet new people. I want to make new friends. Now that day, I don't know why, but I thought of that. Oh, Zelda beaten fast again. So I remember going onto my laptop at the time. I didn't even have a PC at the time because I had my laptop from university. And I remember typing that on YouTube again, but the world record was no longer 18 minutes and 10 seconds. The world record was 17 minutes and 13 seconds by Torge. And I'm like, wow, I thought the 1810 was unbeatable. I thought this world record was like untouchable. It's never going to be beaten ever again. It's impossible. So I went onto YouTube and I found Torge's YouTube channel and I watched the world record video. And I'm like, wow, this is totally different. Like he's doing completely different tricks. Um, and it's like it's a minute faster. Then, as I was watching the video, and so at the time, to put it into context, I wasn't really aware of live streaming. Like at the time, I was making YouTube videos, but I didn't really know what live streaming was. And as I was watching his speed run, I noticed that he was talking to people, like responding to something. Like, what? It's like he's playing a game and he's talking to someone. Who's he talking to? Is there somebody in his room? So I watched it. I'm like, wow, okay. And then on the recommended side, like where the recommended videos, I saw Skater's video as well. And then I watched Skater's video, which was 17 minutes and 15 seconds, which was the second place run at the time. I watched Skater's video, same thing again. He was only 2 seconds slower than Torge. And I was like, wow, what's going on? Who was he talking to? And at the time, I didn't know what Twitch was. I didn't really know what live streaming was. Then I went to the description sections of their videos and it says, watch me live at twitch.tv/skater/Torge. So I'm like, okay. So I went to their channels and neither of them were live. You know, me being from Australia, these guys are like on a completely different time zone. I went to their channels and neither of them were live. And I was a bit disappointed. I'm like, oh, I really want to watch these guys. So I remember for the next week, every day I would refresh their streams. I'll put them up into tabs and I'll reload their streams like all throughout the day to see if I can catch them live. I think it took about a week. And about a week later, I think this would have been like January, late January. Finally, I went to Skater's channel and he was live. He was doing 80% world record attempts and he probably had like 130 viewers. I was watching his Twitch chat. It was so active. I didn't even have an account at the time. So I was watching for about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, wow, this is really, really cool. And I wanted to type something into his chat box, but it said you need to make an account. So I'm like, okay, I'll use this RichardSage name that I've been using, for a long time. The quick version of it is that a long time ago, I had a friend who was an entrepreneur, and he told me, "Fu, people take English names more seriously online." So the English version of my name, Fu, is Rich, and it translates to Richard. And I just added Sage at the end because it sounded smart. That was my line of thinking at the time when I used to write blogs. So I used the name RichardSage. I made the account, and finally, I could type in his chat. And I'll never, ever, ever forget this experience. I'll never forget this. I went to type in his chat. I said something along the lines of, "Hey, Skater, good luck." And I'll never forget this moment. It would have been about 15 or 20 seconds later. I noticed Skater he looks to his right and he's looking at his chat box. And this, forever, this is what changed everything for me. This is 2017, 7 years ago. He looks at his chat and he goes, "Oh, hey, Richard, thank you for the good luck." And it blew my mind because this was a live experience. I'm like, this guy just talked to me. I never forget this. I rolled my chair back, I stood up, and I literally said to myself, what is this website? This guy just talked to me. And I ended up watching him for like the next 6 hours straight. Like I could barely take my eye off the screen. I like barely went to the bathroom because I didn't want to miss it if he got the world record. And that's what planted the seed for me. And I'm like, wow, you know what? This thing is really cool. So I followed him and I found out when he streamed at every single day and he streamed at the same time. So for the next like month, I was basically watching him like or every time he streamed. And I was so captivated. I'm like, wow, watching this guy beat one of my favorite games of all time really, really fast. It absolutely blew my mind. Now, around that time, he ended up raiding, who ended up becoming my best friend on Twitch, is still one of my best friends today. He ended up raiding another speedrunner at the time named my friend Kyle, who was doing some 80% races. And Skater raided Kyle, and then I followed Kyle. Now, what happened was I just started a new job at the time, and I was on my lunch break, and Kyle was streaming. He was streaming Banjo Kazooie to like one person, probably his girlfriend at the time. And I joined his chat and I started chatting to him. So this is where I really started to like understand Twitch because like when you join a smaller community, like when you just hang out in a smaller stream, you can really have a more interactive experience. Like whereas if you watch like a large stream like Ninja or Ludwig, you're not going to get a response from them. You know what I mean? So and that's the experience for most of us. So what happened was I joined his stream and I started chatting to him for like half an hour and I asked him questions like, "Hey, so how does streaming work? How do you do this? And he like paused his game and he took the time to explain everything to me. He's like, oh, I use something called open broadcasting software, which lets me live stream. I use a May Flash adapter and a GameCube controller so I can play Zelda. I use an emulator and a ROM, and we quickly became friends. Now, what happened was that planted the seed for me. He gave me the information I needed to get started. And I'll never forget. I'm like, you know what? I want to give this a try. So I ordered a Mayflash adapter. I ordered a GameCube controller, and then it arrived like a week later. Connected it to my laptop, set up OBS, and then I went live. I did a couple of live test streams to like a handful of people who knew me from like within Skaters chat and different chats that I hung in. So when I started streaming, I had a handful of viewers already because people just knew me within the community, and I loved it. You know, my layout was terrible, my internet was slow, my laptop was almost gonna explode, but I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's how I got into streaming, like early 2017. Just watching some YouTube videos, watching some live streams, wanting to give it a try, and then I decided to learn any percent. So I watched Michael Radar's Kakariko route tutorial on YouTube. I practiced for like 2 or 3 days. I did my very first speed run. It took me an hour and 9 minutes because I died to Ganon 9 times. I failed the wrong warp 7 times, which is the big trick that warps you from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. But I never forget it. And I had 2 people on voice call with me while I was fighting Ganon. I was screaming like, ah! And then eventually I split hour and 9 minutes and I completed my very first speedrun. From that point on, I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to go for the world record. And that was 2017. So yeah, so that's my story. That's how I got into streaming. That's how I got inspired. And fast forward 7 years, here we are now.
Wow, that is a very very awesome sounding story. Like I remember when I first started, it was Pope Squidward and you. That's how I like met you, and but I started following Pope for a while because I looked. That's how I looked it up too. It's like fastest, you know, beaten time in a Zelda game, and it brought me to Twitch. I made a Twitch account. I started interacting with Pope Squidward and his community, just learning everything. And then he rated you, and then I started interacting with you and your community, and that's how I got into streaming, into speedrunning, and it's an amazing thing that like the smallest thing can just like be planted and it grows into this like beautiful flower.
Exactly. And I never could have predicted like where I was going to go. Like it all just started as a hobby, and I was just very, very captivated. And I think that's how sometimes things work. Like sometimes the most random thing can happen and it can like change your life. And I'm
Oh yeah.
sitting here right now on a Monday morning, 7:20 a.m. recording this with you. We're on two opposite sides of the planet
It's,
and recording this episode.
yeah. It is currently Sunday at 2:19 p.m. for me. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's just amazing. And also like the speedrun communities are also like so engaging and helpful. Like
Yeah,
they
I
just
think
they help
I
so
do
much.
I do think we're quite lucky though, because like the specifically the Zelda speedrun communities in my experience are very, very welcoming for the most part. They'll like usually like you'll go live and like if you're a new Zelda speedrunner, like another Zelda speedrunner streamer will come into your chat and like befriend you and like help you out. And that's what happened to me. Like when I started speedrunning, many speedrunners came to my chat. Especially like a lot of OG speedrunners who don't stream anymore, who like are not even on Twitch anymore. Like there's a couple of people I haven't seen them on Twitch in probably 5 years. But back in the day, they used to be in like every single speedrun chat. I know them. We became friends, and yeah, they're very very helpful.
Yeah, I had like a couple pop in and help. I think it was Jess when I first started. Dope Zera, and then Feely as well. Kind of just like
Mm.
getting me like the stuff I needed and just helping me in the background, getting it all set up. Because I currently run on emulator. So, but I'm slowly working to get on console because I think I can push myself and get close or get world record in the any percent glitchless category I'm doing.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, you can definitely do it if you put the grind in. You
oh
can
yeah.
eventually get there.
So, um, since we're talking about like like memorable things and just like where you started and all this other stuff throughout your speedrunning career from 2017 till now. What is a couple of your most memorable moments you've had?
So some of my most memorable moments. That's a great question, by the way. I think I have a couple, and I'll share with you one by one. So I'll easily say the biggest, like one of the most memorable moments I had was when I got sub 1810 in 2017, and my pop off during the sub 1810 to this day I've never topped that. Like I basically was screaming for like it felt like half an hour to an hour after I got the PB. So what happened was I was in the middle of like a 7 hour stream. I had just PB'd probably like 6 hours in, and I got an 1816. My PB was like 1819 at the time, I think, and I got like an 1816 or 1817. And I remember just like, I was okay. Like I wasn't that excited. I wasn't that happy. I'm like, yeah, like progress is progress. The run after, literally the run straight after that, the back to back, and I haven't done this ever since. I played incredibly well, made very little mistakes for the skill level I was at the time, and I got 1809. So to put it into context, if you remember at the very beginning of my story, it was the 1810 story, which is what I first watched, which blew my mind. And for me to beat that time meant so much to me. Like I got the 1809, and when I split and I killed Ganon and I got the 1809, I screamed. I screamed and screamed and screamed. Actually, I don't even know if you've seen that video. I'm gonna have to show you sometime. Um, but yeah, I went absolutely just like ballistic. I couldn't believe it. It was one of the most proud moments I've ever had because I worked so hard for it. I've been speedrunning for months. I've been doing, 6 to 9 hour streams every night, like starting at 7 p.m., streaming till like early morning. Really, really grinding. I'll definitely say that's one of my most memorable moments. The other one would probably be like getting Twitch partner. I'd say that was a huge one for me. So I got Twitch partner April 15th, 2019. So this is about 2.5 years into streaming. So you got to imagine like from 2017 to 2019, I was streaming so much. Like I was like, this is like the most hardest I ever grinded. Even to this day, I don't think I still have ever matched that grind. Getting Twitch partner was such a huge deal for me because, like, statistically, to become a Twitch partner, that puts you in the top 0.6% of all streamers who ever stream on Twitch. You got to imagine like there's millions of people who go live every year, every month on Twitch, right? That puts you to be our Twitch partner, like statistically, puts you on the top 0.6%. And the vast majority of people, statistically, and like this is not for me to like brag and say I'm incredible, but to reach the average view count of 75 to apply and get partner is a very, very hard thing to do. So it was memorable for me because I was at work, I was on a lunch break, and I checked, and I had just applied for Twitch partner a few days prior. I finally reached the average view count, which is the hardest thing to achieve by far. Getting an average of 75 viewers per stream for like 30 days to then qualify and then apply. That took such a long time for me to get that. Like so many times, whenever you're on Twitch, it tells you what your average view count is. Many times my average view count was like 70, 73, even like 74.6. Like it wasn't even like at the number 75. Like it was like an average like calculated number. But eventually I hit the 75. In the back end, they finally opened up the application button where you can apply. I wrote this really epic application. I spent hours writing it. Um, and then yeah, I got an email being invited to the Twitch partner program, and that was absolutely incredible. And that was 2019. This is like 8 months before COVID, so you got to imagine like this is a while ago. But yeah, that was a huge moment for me because I'm like, wow, maybe streaming can be a career for me. I'll probably say the third like memory that I have. Uh, Honestly, it was probably getting the world record. Yeah, this was 3 years in. This was like March 2020. 3 years into my speedrunning career. My dream was to get the world record, and yeah, I finally got it. Like Torch had the world record at the time, and he was like the guy I wanted to be. He was the person I've always chased when it comes to speedrunning. Like even when other people had the world record, I always measured myself against Torch's standard because his gameplay was like 10 out of 10 and very few people could play to his speed. So yeah, getting the world record and beating his time was huge for me. And yeah, I'll probably say those are like the three memorable moments for me in my speedrunning career.
Wow, that I don't know what to say. That's just like a lot of you know, great memories. Like I back to I think it was the first one you were talking about. I think you showed a video of it. Was it the one where you got record but because you were, I think you were jumping up and down, you unplugged your computer or something.
No, so that was a different one. The first one I mentioned was my
Oh.
1809, which was a 2017 PB. But the one you're referring to was, yeah, it was my third world record, which was my 1649. So
Okay.
what happened was this was my third world record. I already had the world record at the time. Um, I got the 1656, 1655, I think, and then it was the 1649. So what happened was at the end of the run, I was so hyped that I stomped the ground, and just as I killed the final boss, Ganon, I stomped the ground and my whole computer shut off.
I remember being in your stream and you showing that, and man, it was like you were so excited, like because you accomplish something. Of course, you're gonna get excited. You're gonna get pumped. Adrenaline's gonna rush through your body, and just thinking that it could have been a frame late of you stomping the ground or anything, and you wouldn't have gotten the world record, but you were a frame pretty much a couple frames later than when you stomped the ground, but you were still able to get it. But yeah, that was the first one that of the videos I remember you showing us.
Yeah, that was I actually thought I lost world record when that happened because like it was so like epic, and then it was just like my computer was off, and I'm like, oh my goodness, did I just lose world record? Like the recording. But then luckily the live stream recorded just enough of the video to the point
Mhm.
where I stomped that it's still a valid world record. So yeah, that was probably the most epic world record I ever got, just because like the way it was, and at the time I had PB'd by like 6 seconds, so it was like a huge PB as well. And then I ended up
Nice.
having the world record for like more than a year after that point. Like nobody really contested it because I ended up coming back a year later and beating that time and getting a 1644. And then eventually Lazutz came into the picture and he just smashed everyone.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think that with certain categories, and even not even in Zelda games either, just like Mario or other ones, like there's a time where you think, oh, this time's unbeatable. This time's unbeatable. No one can beat that. There was a time where with in Majora's Mask, I think it was the no major glitches, which is still being ran to this day. I think there was a time where we thought the 115 is possible, but not 114. I think the current world record right now is 113 something.
Yeah, I think the sausage has it. It's like 113.44 or something now, which
Yeah,
is
it's
pretty
like,
wild.
but it's just also to think that there isn't a impossible time unless it's a god run that just no mistakes, no nothing, and no one else can beat it. It's just because like with the categories you guys ran, no defeat Ganon. Like there was probably a point where you guys thought this run or this time cannot be beaten. Someone else comes into the picture, boom, another world record, lowest time, and then it just domino effect continues to take over, and
Hmm.
it's just crazy to think that about that.
Yeah, I guess I'll add my like take on it. So the barrier keeps getting pushed. Like the limit keeps being pushed. Like for example, there was a time in OOT Ocarina of Time where we thought the 17-minute barrier, the sub 17-minute barrier was the final barrier. Like there was no possible way that the game could be beaten any faster than less than 17 minutes, which was the when Torge finally got the sub 17. He got the 1658, and we were like, this is it. This could be the final minute barrier that will ever be accomplished. And then SRM was discovered, and then it was like sub 10 minutes happened. And now it's like, if you remove the intro from the timing. So if you guys don't know what happened, a quick version of it is that there was a huge vote in the Ocarina of Time community where, and I was one of the people who pushed for this. I basically said that I feel like the intro practically doesn't really have a place in terms of like the timing of the run. Obviously, from a more purist point of view, yeah, the intro counts. But speedrunning is very, very arbitrary and subjective. Like at the end of the day, Nintendo doesn't make any of these rules. This is all rules made by a bunch of people coming together who play the game, and like we come up with a bunch of rules that we put together and agree upon, right? Now, at the time, I'd been watching the intro every single speedrun for years. I've watched the Ocarina of Time intro, which is the first 3 minutes of the game, over and over and over and over and over again. And I was a bit biased, but I got tired of watching the intro. I'm like, why do we have to sit through this whole intro? Because the gameplay doesn't even really begin until you control Link, which is 3 minutes into the run. Eventually, the community voted on it, and we decided to skip the intro, no longer include the intro in the timing. And yeah, that ended up making speedrunning a lot more enjoyable for me, even though I don't do it as much these days, or if at all these days. But yeah, so that's a little bit of history for you about the OT community and like the votes.
And I think the same thing happened with the Majora's Mask community as well, but it got voted against. So, because, like, and they also, like, were talking about skipping, like, first cycle, I think. But then there was, like, no, you still control, like, Link, Deku Link. So it's like, that's not really, like, that should be a part of it. And so it's just, like, there's like thin lines that they had to look through, and it's like, yeah, you control them, but it's like this is like a slow part, and it's like, does this really count? Yes, it counts. So it's just like it's very hard. So certain like communities and all that voted against, voted for no intro. So yeah.
Yeah, I think. Look, honestly, I think Majora's Mask is good. Like they should keep it as pure as possible. Because there was downsides to the intro being skipped in OOT as well, which was like the other concerns that were brought up. But yeah, like I found for me personally that having the intro skipped actually changed the dynamic of my stream. So one of the things that I particularly did in my stream, which helped my stream grow, was I put a huge emphasis on interaction, right? So I'm not just a person who just plays games, plays them fast, and you're entertained. What was my standing out factor, and I still do this to this day, is I put a huge emphasis on interacting with everyone that comes into my stream. People come in with questions. We talk about life. Like I might pull out my guitar, play some music. So the intro time during my streams was actually extremely valuable because it gave me time to interact with my audience. Right now, what happened was once the intro was removed and I was able to just like blast out attempts, it actually took that aspect away from my stream because most people would enjoy the intros. They would enjoy the 3 minutes I would spend every run talking to my audience. Whereas now it's like, oh, your run's dead, reset straight into the run because you can control Link. So I do think there's a pro and con to the whole intro, no intro thing. From a gameplay perspective, I think the intro being skipped is great. I think it's phenomenal. From an interaction point of view, I actually think it's a detriment. So I think, for example, if they introduce intro skip into Majora's Mask, I think it would negatively affect Majora's Mask streamers like Pope Squidward, the Sausage, yourself, because like that's a downtime that's very valuable between you and the viewer, because you need that time to interact. Because if you're just gaming the whole time, you just become entertainment, which is
Yeah.
fine. Entertainment's great, but you need to have connection as well. So that's just a little bit of a tangent. But I actually think, in hindsight, if I could go back, I think, I still think intro skip is valid, but I also did runs with the intro, even when intro skip was allowed, because I needed that interaction to come back to my stream. And I tell you, when I started doing the intros again, my chat interaction went up again. So that's just a little bit of a side note for you.
Yeah, and like especially when you get like where it's just all game and all that stuff, and you're not really interacting with the chat or anything, is that's when it's like where you have to be the more focused on the game, and it's hard to interact with chat and like all this other stuff. So having the intros in speedruns and all that, it does help a lot. It helps you just interact and stuff like that. So I think I agree with you with the Majora's Mask community that intro skip should not be allowed.
Nah, they should keep it pure. Same as Mario, the Mario community. They debated having intro skip. I'm like, nah, like that minute intro does make a difference. Also, it really hurts your hands constantly playing nonstop. You need to have breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So having like intros and cutscenes are actually valuable.
Yeah. Um, I'm not sure what question to ask. Like we have a lot of topics, but it's just like
Yeah, feel free to go through the list of questions you already have,
yeah.
and then we can go from there.
So you kind of talked a little bit about it with the first question is that you had someone give you instructions and um, advice and all that. How would you right now give advice to someone who's interested in getting into speedrunning?
So the first thing I would say is spend time to think about what do you want out of speedrunning. This is very important. You got to know your why, because I started speedrunning as a hobby, and as a byproduct, I grew into success. Right. So my first advice for anyone who wants to get into speedrunning is ask yourself why do you want to speedrun? Like what is your goal with speedrunning? Like do you want to become a streamer? Like do you want to become a Twitch partner and make an income from it? Do you want to do it for fun as a hobby? And I think if you start from that place, you're going to succeed a lot more because you're entering in with a clear objective of like, why am I doing this? Because speedrunning is hard. Like it's very fun at the beginning. You're going to have a bit of novelty. It's going to be cool. You're going to learn new tricks. But then you're going to hit a wall because you need to practice to get better. You need to learn. You're going to fail a lot. Like speedrunning is 99% failure. 99.99% of attempts you ever do are going to fail. And you're going to have to work really, really hard to get a personal best, like your best personal time or even a world record. So that's my first advice is to, you know, be clear about why you want to be a speedrunner. And that answer could change over time. But before you begin, ask yourself, why do you want to be a speedrunner? Is it to have fun? Is it to make money? Is it to, make friends? Once you know that, then you can get started. From that point on, I would say when it comes to speedrunning, be very clear. Uh, like this ties into the first question is that ideally you want to speedrun something that you enjoy. Okay. Like don't speedrun a game just because it's popular and because it gets viewers. If you don't enjoy it, your viewers are not going to enjoy it too. Okay, the potential viewers will have it because like eventually, if you just like let's say you picked up SM64, Super Mario 64, and you know that it has a huge viewer base, but you don't actually like the game. You're just doing it to get the viewers. That's going to eat at you over time because you're not going to enjoy it. So what I would suggest for anyone who wants to become a speedrunner is you have to do two things. Number one, you should speedrun something that you enjoy. But number two, if you're going to stream it, speedrun something that people have an interest in. Because I do know this. There are people who speedrun games that don't have an active audience and they're trying to grow as a streamer. So, for example, one of those games is Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. And it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's actually a phenomenal speedrun. The problem is, there's not really an audience that exists for it. So you could stream it 20 hours a day and have 0 viewers. Not because the game's not good, or because you're not working hard enough. It is because there isn't an actual demand around that game. So the sweet spot, the number one sweet spot that you can have when it comes to speedrunning, if you want to be a content creator, is you got to do something that you enjoy that people actually want to watch. That's why Zelda worked for me. That is the number one reason why Zelda worked for me. Aside from my ability to work hard, my ability to pump out content, my ability to show up on time, my ability to get PBs and world records, the fact is that there was already an audience who were interested in watching Ocarina of Time. All right, so it's called supply and demand. Demand is what do people want to watch? Supply is you, the content creator, giving that content. So yeah, that's the best advice I can give you. Number 3 is always approach speedrunning from a fun and hobby mindset. As soon as it becomes a chore, as soon as it becomes like something you dread, like it's like imagine going to the gym, but you dread going to the gym. Now you should look forward to it. Speedrunning is something you should be looking forward to. Doesn't mean every day is going to be good, but most of the time, if you're entering speedrunning like, and you're worried about going live, oh, I'm not going to perform well. That's gonna ruin you in the long run. So have a hobby and fun mindset. And I would say fourth general principle is just focus on making gradual progress. You don't have to go for the craziest strategies right away. Like I've seen this time and time again. Many times I would watch a new streamer, right? And they're gonna go for the hardest strategies first. Because I'm gonna get world record in 3 weeks, in 3 months. I'm gonna learn all the hard strats right away. And almost 100% of the time, I never see that person stream again after 3 months. I don't see them go live. They just disappear because the burden of expectation is too high. What I did as a speedrunner is I gradually improved and added strategies over time. I didn't go for the hardest strategies right away. I started with the most basic, easy stuff and I worked my way up. And my audience got to follow my journey. They got to see me improve year after year after year to eventually becoming world record holder. So yeah, so I would say those are like the general pieces of advice I'd give. Um, and maybe a bonus tip is that if you want to be a content creator, um, these days in 2024, streaming a tremendous amount of hours does not correlate with growth. It can help, but the emphasis should be turning your streams into content. So
Yeah.
what I mean by that is if you stream, at the end of the stream, take some clips from the stream and then edit it if you can, learn how to edit. Like there's YouTube videos that can teach you how to edit. And then upload it to like TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and that content will make you grow more than you stream. Make YouTube stream highlights. Like even if they're not good at the beginning, you have to learn. You have to learn through the process. But I would highly recommend that you learn right away how to edit content from your streams. In the long run, that'll benefit you. Yeah, so that's some advice I'd give.
Yeah, very good advice, and like I agree as well. Like I've gotten a lot of advice on, with my speedrunning journey through others and just and stuff like that, and like don't just look at it as like what you were saying. Don't look at it as a job either. It's like you have to look at it more as a hobby, because burnout is another thing that will happen as well. And then it's like your favorite game that you wanted to speed run and now you're constantly going, it's just not going to um it's not going to be enjoyable, you know. um
Yeah.
and so
All right, I'll be right back. You just saw my message.
yeah, I did.
Yep, I'll
Okay.
be right back. All right,
So
for the people listening to the recording, I actually just have to quickly go to the bathroom. But Majora, who's my co-host, will keep you guys entertained. I'll come back and we'll keep the conversation going.
but yeah, so my advice is take baby steps. Baby steps, don't take a giant leap or anything. Talk to people who have either speed ran, like what we were talking about earlier. Either talk to people who have speed ran the category or of the same game, because they possibly have talked to others who done that category or so on and so forth, or watch YouTube videos and talk, go into the communities. Hey, I have a question about this, or I have a question about that. Oh, how do you do this? What is a quick time saver for that? So yeah, I would just ask the communities, and they would also help with advice and everything for that. So um and also another piece of advice I would add is just back to the other thing is just take it slow. Don't rush into it. You'll speed will slowly get your speed will slowly get there. You have to have time to get used to the movement and um everything else. So it just takes time. But sooner or later
Yeah.
you will get there. So
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm back. Thank you
welcome
for that.
back.
Yeah, I'm excited for more questions. Bring it on. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Okay. With the speedrunning community, how's it evolved over time, and what changes have you seen in terms of games, strategy, and technology used?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think I'll take this one from a different angle. So the biggest evolution I've seen in speedrunning, and this is a very basic explanation, but it makes sense, is that the speedrunning community has just basically matured over time. If you think about like a lot of speedrunners, a lot of them were quite young when they began. Like if you think of runners like Cheese or Punkation or any of like the more well-known speedrunners, a lot of them started speedrunning when they were like teenagers, you know, or like early adults. And now they're approaching their 30s, or people who started in their 30s and now they're approaching their 40s. I would say the biggest change I've seen in speedrunning since I started 7 years ago is that people are just getting older. People, their lives are changing. They're getting jobs, or their streams did become successful, or they don't stream anymore because things in life change. So I would say probably what I've seen the most from that perspective is that yeah, speedrunners are just getting older. They're not teenagers anymore. Somebody who started, like when I started watching Skater and Torj, they were teenagers. Like they were like 16, 17 years old. Now they're in their mid 20s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be approaching 33 this year. I started when I was 25, you know? So like that's the biggest one, is that the landscape of speedrunning has changed because people are getting older and their lives are just changing outside of the streaming world. The second thing I'll say, from a technology perspective, is that especially with like Zelda and Mario, is like the speedrunning tools for practice are incredible now. Compared to when I started speedrunning, like we used to do something called gecko codes, which is like you would use like this program called Gecko, which can inject codes onto your game file, and you can like partially it's like a very minor version of the practice ROM. But you can do like you can like teleport Link around, you can like make him adult Link, for example. But the practice quality was nowhere near as good as it is now. So I'd say one of the reasons why speedrunners are so much better in the modern age is that the tools are just so much better, the resources are a lot more stronger. And also a lot of like devs have like they've like reverse engineered the code of the game, like the decomp projects, for example. So they actually understand the games on a coding level much better than they used to. Like back in the day, a lot of speedrunning strats were based on theory. So people would like, they would have an idea of like a strat and like they'll have a mental concept of how it works, but they didn't really have the empirical data to back it. Now they can be like, oh, we can look at the game's code and it explains specifically why certain things are happening. So you put that in combination, the communities have evolved, people getting older, people are living their lives. The other aspect is that the tools are just a lot stronger, and also people just have a much thorough understanding of the games now. And you're gonna see it in like future games as well, where like the precedent's been set. More practice tools will be evolved, and and also speedrunning itself is just a lot more popular thing worldwide. Like you go to the early days of GDQ, like 2013, 2012, 2011, speedrunning was a very niche thing, a small group of people who were phenomenal. And you think of runners like Siglemic, like the OG runners, like they're the ones who paved the way for everyone forward. Now speedrunning is quite mainstream. Like a lot of people even know about it. Like people who I've met like in person, not even from Twitch, they know what speedrunning is. Like, oh yeah, I've seen like Point Crow or like Small Land. I'm like, wow, like these like just your everyday normal person at a bar knows what speedrunning is. So it's definitely a lot more big now in that aspect.
Yeah, and like currently, like right now, we have Ludwig's like Fast 50 going on right now, where it's just it's kind of like a smaller like a GDQ type thing, where he gets like content creators and speedrunners all around, and raise money for certain awarenesses that I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but and just like show more of the world what speedrunning is and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like it's cool to see like there's more events going on. There's also pace going on at the moment as well. So yeah, there's a lot
Hmm.
happening when it comes to speedrunning. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. Can you walk us through your thought process when you are trying to optimize a speedrun?
My thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So basically, there's two steps to doing it. Number one is objectively, there's always a faster strategy and route for what you're running. So, for example, with Defeat Ganon, at the time that I was running, there was always faster strategies available, but there's always a risk factor when applying a new strategy. So you have to weigh the cost between going for a strategy and the risk factor. The risk factor equal means failure, right? So one of the reasons why Lazutz was so successful in like getting the world record is that he would go for much riskier strategies than me. He would do much harder strategies like Baba Hess, which is where you do like a super slide from a plant, like plant enemy from outside the Deku Tree, which like super slides you all the way to Lost Woods, which saves like 4 seconds, which is like a huge time save compared to what I was doing. So the thought process is number one is you got to factor in the risk, how much failure you're willing to accept, which is are you going to go for a strategy that has like a 1% success rate or a strategy that has a 20% success rate? If you go for the 1% success rate, you're going to have to do a tremendous amount of attempts just to get that strategy once, and you still have to get the rest of the run right. So you have to weigh in how much are you willing to fail and how much are you willing to grind over a particular strategy or route. So that's the thought process. Second thing is you have to factor in how much are you going to practice. Like what really made me really improve in my speedrunning was that I started actually practicing. Like I didn't actually do offline practice for the first few years. A majority of my practice was during streams, doing no resets, which basically means like completing a run without resetting, even if it's slow. And I improved. But when I started doing dedicated offline practice, my skill level skyrocketed, and it didn't take me much longer to get world record. So that's the thought process I would say. Number one is factor in how much you're willing to fail. If the strategy is worth it for you at the level you're at, I would recommend not going for crazy strategies until you're near world record level. If you're trying to go for world record level strats and you're like your first 6 months of speedrunning, like you're basically just setting yourself up for failure because you're never going to feel a sense of accomplishment. Imagine you're streaming 5 hours a day and all you do is fail. Like you're not gonna feel good about yourself. You know what I mean? So the best thing is you want to have gradual wins along the way. You want to go live, get small PBs or even large PBs, but continuously feel a sense of progress. That's what's gonna make you do this a long time. Even out, not even just speedrunning. Anything that you do, whether it's going to the gym, trying to build a stream, your career, whatever it is, a sense of progress is so important for you to keep going. If you feel like you're not getting anywhere, you're not getting a reward for what you're doing. Like your internal body, your subconscious mind won't accept it, and you're just gonna be like, "This is a waste of time," right? So that's what I would say: is factor in the risks, focus on a sense of progress, and give it time. You know what I mean? Like, I'd also say this: also talk to other speedrunners, get their advice, like get their mindset. Because what really helped me improve was talking to other Zelda speedrunners. Like I'll talk to Torj, I'll talk to Skater, I'll talk to like many other OOT speedrunners. And what they would do is they would share their mindset with me. Like Torj was willing to just like he didn't care. Like he would go for the craziest strats. He didn't care how much he had to reset. Skater was all about work hard. It's like, you know what, it could take you 10 hours, but you put those 10 hours in, you get the PB. Other speedrunners were like, hey man, it's about diligent practice, like being very specific about your practice. So learning from how different people think can expand your ability to improve, and then you can find your own method of improving too. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Nice. Now, kind of like going into that a little bit more, because during speedrunning, you have a lot of nerves and pressure and a little bit of anxiety. Also, your emotions run high, especially if you're on like PB pace or anything. How do you handle those when, especially when you're on a world record run?
Yeah. So can you? Sorry, I just had a text message. I had to. Sorry,
No, you're
I had
good.
to look at that quickly.
Um,
Quickly, can you rephrase that for me?
how do you handle nerves and pressure during a run, especially when you're attempting a world record?
That's a very good question. So I'll give you a very, very succinct answer. The answer for that is a lot of the time you have to manage your physiology. So what that means is your actual body, not just your thoughts. So a lot of the time when you're nervous, your breathing is going to get more shallow, your body's going to get cramped up. So one of the more funny things that I would do is during cutscenes, I would blast out a bunch of push-ups. Because what it would do is like it will actually exercise out the anxiety that you have in your body. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just sitting there trying to convince yourself, I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous, it's going to make you more nervous. So,
Mm-hmm.
my number one tip for handling nerves and anxiety during a run, especially when you're about to PB and a huge trick's about to come up, is you got to get control of your breathing. Like, most of the time, you're like, like, you're not really breathing. Like, you got to slow down your breath. You got to take deep breaths through the nose, out the mouth. If possible, stand up, stretch, like do some push ups, like just get your body moving and it will stabilize you. And then physically, you're in a better place. And then mentally, your mind will follow. So that's the best advice I'll give.
Yeah, I have had to do that multiple times when I first started off, and like, and it's not even like world record or anything. It's about just like PB as well. It's like in Majora's Mask, when you go and fight Majora, you got to go through the whole extra long cutscene of, the moon starting to crash. The text dialogue through um, Majora and Link, and like the whole cutscene of the giants coming in to stop the moon and everything. Um, so
Oh, yeah, keep
it's
going.
just
I just need to
like,
quickly grab something while you chat. Yeah,
yeah, okay.
keep going. Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of nerves, you're like not like what Richard was saying is like you gotta breathe, you gotta calm down, get up, stretch. What I do is I have a song that plays that kind of gets me in the mood when I listen to it and just pumps me up pretty much. And yeah, and then all the nerves and all that are gone. But it's like you also, the main thing is just to breathe. Us humans, we need to breathe. It is not very good if you are not breathing. So, but yeah, it's just understanding that there are nerves, there will be pressure during a run. You might have like a really good early, like, beginning split, and then all of a sudden it all fails and it's starting to go downhill. Don't let that drag you down. The nerves, the emotion will just start dragging you down. Think of it as just practice as well. If like, oh, you're not going to get PB, that's fine. This is just practice because it will help you get faster and all this other stuff. But yeah, it's just like you gotta keep an eye on yourself as well. So just breathe regularly, like I said, what Richard was saying, push-ups, stretch, stand, all this other stuff. So what other question? Hmm. Another thing with handling nerves and pressure is to how would I put this? Is to just like let everything go. Let your mind like become blank, um and just like focus pretty much. Put everything on the shelf is what I do, and just allow myself, because I know how to do this fight. I've done this fight thousands and thousands of time. I know that this possibility can happen or it can go this way, and if this thing happens and it affects the fight later on, there's this way you can fix it, like, and all this other stuff. But you just, I gotta hold on to your nerves and put them on the shelf. Like, once you either accomplish world record or accomplish a PB, then you can have all the nerves, the pressure, and all sorts of emotions just coming back, and just, you know, then you can feel everything. Feel everything because it's over. You got it. You accomplished something, and so on and so forth. Like, I just recently did a run like 5 days ago, 5 or 6 days ago, and it was my second run back. And I thought at first, because I had to go against new splits, so I did another run a while back before where I had new splits. So I was running against those, and just time was slowly ticking down. I was slowly going, and the nerves started getting, a hold of me. I just had to shake them off, all this other stuff, because I knew that I could do this. And it just, what I did is, just when this cutscene was happening, just pulled everything out of my mind, the nerves, everything, put them on the shelf. No, focused on the game, knew that I could do this, and then I let everything back in and just let everything go.
Nice, dude. And I'm back. Thank you. Yeah, it's a
Welcome
busy
back.
Monday morning here, so things
Yeah,
coming in and out. But we
no
can still make an
worries.
episode happen.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So
But yeah, let's fire off. What's the next question?
okay. So you've talked a little bit about it with the Mario 64. How did you approach learning a new speedrun, and what resources did you rely on?
Oh, okay. So for the context, I ran Mario for about 6 to 12 months for a little bit for a bit of fun. This was around probably 3 or 4 years into OoT, Ocarina of Time, and I wanted a bit of a change of scenery. So I decided to buy an N64, buy a Hori controller, buy an EverDrive. I bought all the things. So number one is you don't have to do that. I would say don't worry about making big investments of money. At the time, I did it because I was reinvesting earnings from streaming. But if you're just paying out of pocket, I highly recommend just playing on emulator and saving yourself a ton of money, because you need to try it out first to see if you like it. Like, don't spend $500 on a console setup and then realize you don't like it. You know what I mean? So, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was more of a stream investment to spend that money to get what I needed. So that's what I did. The second thing I would say is that the way I approached SM64, I think I learned it very, very fast because I had the experience of learning Ocarina of Time. When you speedrun one game or you learn one game, you learn how to learn. You learn how to practice. You learn what works for you. So I already had years and years of practice with Zelda, that by the time I started Mario, I already had a methodology to learning Mario. Because I had the methodology from learning Zelda, which is number one, watch the world record level, and then watch other levels of gameplay. So I would watch like the top runners, right? But I wouldn't just watch the top runners. I would watch the 100th place runner, the 500th place runner, the person who's like 1,000. You know what I mean? And I'd look at their individual skill levels, and I would try and level my way up through that, which is what I did with Zelda. Now with Mario, I didn't want to push it too far. I got a time that I was happy with, and I didn't really push it that much longer. So what I would suggest is, if you want to learn a second or third game, understand that you already have the advantage of running a game before. You already know how to practice. You already know how to learn. I would suggest watching different speedrunners at the different skill levels that they're at. You know, don't just watch top runners. Watch people who are just learning. Watch people who've been running for 6 months. Watch people who've been running for 2 years, and you can like work your way up through like a ladder of skill, and then build your skills up over time. So that's the way I approached it. I would watch many different runners at different skill levels, and that's how I would approach any game when it comes to learning. And then you want to look for tutorials. Luckily, games like Mario have really good tutorials. They have video tutorials. They have like wiki article tutorials. They have runners who can come into your chat and explain down to the detail how certain tricks work. Like I remember I was learning like bomb clip, which is a clip that you do to clip through the gate in Mario. And I literally had like 3 Mario runners in my chat explaining it to me, and I pulled it off, and it was easy, right? But that's because people are willing to help. Now, if there's a game where there's not that many resources, you may have to take the time to figure it out yourself. A lot of the time, I would also just try and figure things out myself. I wouldn't just default to looking for a tutorial. Like when I watch Zelda, a lot of the time I'll watch like a speedrun, like a Medallion Stones Trials run, and I'll watch Marco do a trick. I don't necessarily go straight to YouTube. Oh, how did he do that? I'll watch him and I'll watch his inputs. I'm like, oh, he held R here, he tapped L here, he tapped A here, and I'll try it and it would work. So sometimes you can just learn through straight observation, but obviously you can save yourself time with these tutorials. But that's what I would say. Learn through observation, scale up in skill set, and just take your time with it. That's what I'd say.
Nice. Yeah, that's I'd pretty much do the same thing. Especially like get the practice ROM, if anything as well. And play along while you're watching the practice route or like the route that teaches you or anything. That's what I did.
Oh, that's really good.
So so we're coming up a little under an hour. Do you have any questions for me?
So I have a question for you. Sure. Well, since we've quickly become friends in the last month or so, last 2 months, I'd say. And this is for my audience too, because we're both doing like a joint podcast here. I would say, what's one of your favorite things about my stream that you've enjoyed, and how you
The
found me?
energy. Like you just give off this like energy that I always feel welcomed into your chat. Like, yes, you're a larger, even when you were a larger streamer, um, as well, before you did take your break, like you were still interacting with everyone as best as you can. If minus like if you were in a run and you weren't really like focused on chat, you were more focused on the run. Like, but you were still you just have that vibe and energy of hey, this is a comfy, cozy stream. You you are welcome here, and that's just how every time I open up your stream or see that you go live, that's how I feel.
Hmm. Oh, that's really nice, dude. I really appreciate that. Like, that's basically what I wanted. I wanted people to feel appreciated and valued. I guess I'll give you another question for you, which is, what do you love about streaming?
So a lot of people don't know this, but I actually went through I think it was burnout like once or twice because I was more looking at it as a job than a hobby. And that is the worst thing you can do. I'm I'm not really like a bigger streamer. I have maybe 1 to 2 people in my stream, and that's perfectly fine. I was even though I was at that level, I was looking at it more as a job where I can use this to make money, so I can help my family and so on and so forth. Because that's what I was watching other people do as well. I see them making money, getting gift subs. It's like, oh, I can do that, and I can turn this into a job, and yeah, and that just kept leading me into burnout. So I stopped for a while, but now that I came back, I think it's been a year, maybe 2.5 or so years that I came back, and now I'm actually looking at it as a hobby. It's amazing. It feels so much fun. I'm doing a lot more collabs with people, and it's just streaming is now a hobby for me. And I do have a job. I have a physical job that I go to, really good hours and I get off at a reasonable time where I can come home, stream for a couple hours, make dinner, go to bed, and then redo it. So I'm really glad where I'm at in my streaming journey. And I have like Richard, I have you to thank. I have like so many other friends to thank uh to help me that helped me get at this point. Because I would
Yeah,
not be
that's really
here.
good.
I would not be here streaming in my streaming career or my YouTube career or anything without you guys.
That's what it comes down to, right? Like it's the people around you. That's something I've really, really, really learned this year. Like outside of streaming, is like it's so important, like to have the core people in your life, whether it's friends, family, your partner. Like you're not gonna do this alone. Like doing this
Mm-hmm.
alone is a very, very, very lonely journey, and it can have a big toll on you. So I would also say, to add on top of you, like I'm coming from someone who did it as a career, and now does it more like a, to kind of keep me afloat while I'm changing like careers and stuff is that yeah, even when it's your career, still view it as a hobby. Like go into
Mm-hmm.
streams with the intention to have fun. Once you start obsessing about numbers and metrics, and even someone who does it full time, they'll still tell you, don't look at your view count, don't look at don't obsess over your sub count while you're streaming. That stuff will come as a byproduct, and even if it doesn't come as a byproduct, like view streams as a way to engage and have fun because that is the more sustainable way to keep streaming. Like, I know for a fact, like, I came back to streaming with that mindset and it saved me. If I came back to streaming with the money making mindset or like, this is like my job, like, it is at the moment because that's what I can do while I'm looking for a new role. But, you know, if I was measuring myself based on that, I would have burned out again because my numbers are not like they used to be because I did take such a long break. But now I focus on the more intrinsic values, which is like, connecting with my audience, having a good time, feeling proud of something that I did, like finishing a game that I enjoyed, making a positive impact for that one person in my chat. If you can come from that framework, I think it's a really good place to be. I
Oh
guess
yeah.
I'll give you another question is where would you like to see your stream go in the future?
So I would like to see my stream go in a more like positive like direction. Like just not yeah, everyone would like to have like a higher view count, all that stuff. Like yeah, that would be nice, but I would also like it where to have a little bit of a higher view count, but not too high, because I feel like a little bit on what you were saying earlier, the larger streamers don't really interact with chat that much. Their chat's moving too fast or anything like that. I would like to have a niche little like community where I can still talk to everyone, have a good time, and all that sort of stuff. Like I would love to see myself as a partner later down in the future. And with these collabs I'm currently doing, it's not just helping me, it's helping other people as well. And I think that, and making YouTube content as well, I think that will also help me grow even more.
That's good. Yeah, I think you're doing well, and you're definitely doing the right things, and yeah, I'm excited to see you grow. And yep, just like you're in the right mindset, you're doing it in a very healthy way, and the collabs we've been doing together have been really fun. In fact, I want to do more collabs with you. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll make it happen.
Yeah. And I just want to also take this time to just thank you as well. Even like opening up your community for the collabs, joining me on this podcast and me joining you for your podcast. Like I never ever thought I would be in this sort of situation before. And
Well,
it's
that's the thing.
just
Opportunities can happen when
yeah,
I think when
and
you're a kind and humble person, it can happen.
yeah, and it's just an amazing feeling. So
Yeah, that's great. Wow, we've been going for an hour. I think that's really solid.
yeah, so if you want, we can wrap up right now, or we can go a little bit longer. I got a
Yeah,
couple
maybe
more questions. So
yeah, sure. Feel free to fire out the questions.
all right, so if you want to wrap up, I can ask the final question.
Yeah, we'll wrap up soon. Just fire a
Okay.
couple more, and I'll let you know.
Let's see. How do you stay motivated to continue speedrunning, especially when you hit a plateau or face setbacks?
That's a really, really good question. So staying motivated, um, is I'm gonna be honest with this one. One of the reasons why I was so motivated is because I systematically managed my expectations. So I will say the thing that kills most people's speedrunning motivation or motivation in general is that your expectations are usually too high and you're not meeting them enough. So the thing that I would measure my progress on wasn't did I PB today? Did I get a personal best? Did I get world record today? If you're constantly chasing like these hoops of milestones, you're very rarely going to have enough motivation. Because like I said, speedrunning is 99% failure, right? So what kept me motivated was I would systematically hit a milestone that was more realistic in front of me. An example of that is speedrunning Zelda. My milestones were always in very achievable increments. Like I didn't go from 1810 to world record. I went from 1810 to sub 18 to sub 1750 to sub 1740, sub 1730, sub 1720, sub 1710, world record. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I would argue that a lot of speedrunners burn out because they're trying to take too big of a mental leap between progress. And when they don't feel any of that progress, they lose motivation. They get burned out. So, yeah, number one is managing your expectations. Set goals that are more timely, realistic. And I'll give you two pieces of mental frameworks to measure that on. The first thing is you must not underestimate how long it's going to take. Okay, most speedrunners underestimate how long it takes to achieve a certain goal. Some people are like, yeah, I'll get world record in 1 year, and now it's been 2 years and they're still 50th place. They feel like they lost. They feel like they failed, right? When I started speedrunning, I told myself it'll take 3 years to get world record. 3 years. I didn't say 6 months. I didn't say 1 year. I didn't say 2. I said 3 years. It's not because I didn't believe in myself. It's because I literally looked at who had world record at the time, who has had world record, and how long did it take them to get world record. On average, it took them 2 or 3 years. Jordan Stone, Torge, Skater, Nasisa Wright, ZFG. A lot of them had been running for years. So I already entered in 2017 with the mindset it's probably going to take me 3 years to get world record. And guess what? I got it 3 years later. I was on the money. Okay. So manage your expectations and don't underestimate how long it's going to take. Number two, do not underestimate how hard it's going to get because you're going to fail. You're going to do lots of attempts and it's not going to work out. You're going to do all the practice. You're going to do all the right things to position yourself to succeed and you're going to fail, 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 fail. But if you know that up front, if you know that it's going to be difficult ahead of time, you can sustain the storm until you succeed. So yeah, so that's what I would say. Manage your expectations. Don't underestimate how long it's going to take. Don't underestimate how difficult it's going to be. And number three is you can always take breaks.
That's
You
what I
know
was
what I
about
mean?
to. That's what I was
You
about
don't
to
have to.
say.
Yeah, you don't have to keep persevering. You can like take a week to go play a variety game. There's something I wish I did more often. I wish that I wasn't just speedrunning. I wish I took weeks where I just did something different, which is what I'm doing nowadays, and it's working for my stream. It's actually grown my stream now. Like if I boot up Defeat Ganon right now, I'll get less viewers because like this, the demand for speedrunning is nowhere near as it used to be. Like right now I'm doing a ROM hack called Ultimate Trial, and like it was really cool last stream that I did. So I would say, yeah, take breaks. Don't just keep hammering the hammer into the nail. Take a break, go do something different, play a different game, even take a break from streaming if you need to, and understand that you can always come back to speedrunning. Yeah, so that's the advice I'd give.
Yeah, and I'm right in there with you as well. My main thing, because like I said earlier, I've dealt with burnout. 100% take breaks. Take a day, a two, three, a couple months, maybe a year. Like it's took me before this last couple weeks before I started picking up Majora's Mask speedrunning in. I stopped speedrunning for a full year because I was just constantly. I was also pressuring myself because I knew I can get a faster time, and I was losing time and all that. So I was like, you know what? I need to take a step back. I'll be back someday. I didn't put a time limit. Oh, I'll be back in like 3 months or anything. I said I'll be back when I want or when I feel like I couldn't come back. And I came back. I did a couple runs, and then my third run or so, I beat my actual PB. So take breaks. Don't push yourself too hard.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So
That's a good take. All right, I think
so
I got time for one more question, and
yep,
then we'll
and
probably wrap it up there.
this will be the last question. So as we know is that you don't really speedrun currently, but what are your goals for your speedrunning career, and how do you see the future of the speedrunning
Hmm.
community?
So yeah, that's a good question. So at the very moment, I could imagine myself speedrunning if I had a true desire to get world record again in something, whether it's Zelda or like another game. At the very moment, my heart's desire is to focus more on the variety side of things, which is where my I feel like my personality really does shine. Like even though I was speedrunning Zelda and getting world records, most of the people hung out in my streams because they liked me as a person. Like the speedrunning journey was more of a background content, like the more filler content. The real interaction was us chatting and hanging out in the stream. In terms of the future, I'm not too sure at the moment. I don't know if I will want to do active speedrunning like I used to, like grinding for world records and stuff. Because like I feel like your passions change over time, and that was my passion, in my 20s. Now I'm in my 30s. I think my ambitions are different. In terms of the future of the speedrunning community, I can definitely see the changing of the guard. So this is an old saying, but basically every generation, will be replaced with another generation. Like 10 years from now, there'll be a whole different set of streamers who speedrun. Like it's not going to be like the same people who are around right now. Even take it from me, 7 years ago, the landscape of speedrunners was so different to who's now. The majority of the speedrunners I watched back then don't speedrun anymore, don't stream anymore. They moved on with their lives. So I could definitely see that happening again in the future where the current subset of people, they're going to move on. They're going to do other things. They're probably going to be variety streamers or they're going to retire from speedrunning. And there's going to be a whole new wave of influencers, a whole new wave of streamers, whole different names that we've never heard of before who will be at the forefront of speedrunning and
And
content creation.
that's not just with speedrunning by itself. That's in just like YouTube life itself. Like
Yep.
I I follow a lot of random different YouTubers, and one was MatPat or Game Theory. Him and his wife have been just running through um their YouTube channel for the longest time, and now he is finally taking a step back, because he has like 4 or 5 different channels that he runs, that he does the voiceover for. He helps with research and all this other stuff, and then he realized that this is a lot for one person or him and his partner to handle. So it's like, step back, let the new people take control and lead the group, and we'll relax and help when we're needed. And it's like what you
Yeah.
were saying is like, there people will retire. One day Pope Squidward will retire. One day ZFG will retire. Axel Larson, so on and so forth, until and someone new comes along that we've never heard before, who has just blown everyone away by their speedrunning skills, and then they are the new, top speedrunner, or you know and it's just a part of life, and it's not like to get anyone down or anything either. It's just like that's how it goes.
Yep. That's just the cycle of life. That's just how it is. It's going to keep going like that. And then that next generation will be replaced with another generation. So
Hmm.
what I would suggest is we got to enjoy the moment as it is. We got to enjoy the day as it
Exactly.
is, the time that we have right now, and not overly obsess about the future.
Hmm. The future is still there. It will happen. Just baby steps. Take the time that you have now and enjoy it. Enjoy it with friends. Enjoy it while streaming, doing your hobby, even if it's not on a computer. If you like drawing, go draw. Go fish. Go axe throwing. Go enjoy life as it is right now. So,
Absolutely.
but I
Yeah, wow.
think that's
Yeah.
it. Uh,
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for
yeah,
having me on the show. Yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it for both people, for both listeners, for both channels. With mine, the Food Podcast, and also the Pace Pals Podcast. Thank you for having me, and
yeah,
I look forward to seeing where things go. I'm gonna upload it to my channels as well. Majora, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to see you grow, and I hope you guys got something out of this.
yeah. For Pace Pals, if you want to follow Richard and his streaming journey, his links and all that would be down in the description below, and with his podcast episode as well. I will put that in the description as well. So go give him a follow. Like he said, he is currently doing a ROM hack called Ultimate Trial. And yeah, just go give him some love and all that stuff. He's an amazing guy. So I appreciate you though, Richard.
Yeah. So if, yeah, like we emphasized earlier, if you're wondering why people call me Fu or Richard, I basically go by both names. Like Fu is my
Mm-hmm.
real Vietnamese name, and Richard's my like Twitch English name that people call me.
All right. Well, thank you again. And it was a pleasure having you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
Yep. All right. Peace out.
Thank you.